What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another Battlefield 6 gun guide. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into the stats of the M60 LMG, and toward the end, I'm going to be sharing a couple excellent attachment combinations to try out. And starting it off, as always, let's have a look at our raw power potential, and the M60 has quite a slow rate of fire at 514 rounds per minute, which interestingly is exactly the same as the KTS 100. However, unlike the KTS, which has quite a slow time to kill since it's a 4 to 6 shot kill, the M60 is a 3 to 5 shot kill, so that means up close we're killing in 233 milliseconds with a 3 shot kill, and that is a very solid time to kill for this game. And to top that off, when it comes to headshots, without hollow point ammo, headshots are not really going to be all that useful, but with hollow points up close, you can now kill with just 2 headshots in a row for a 117 millisecond time to kill. Next, taking a look at our range values, we've got a standard range profile here for an LMG, and this means our maximum damage range, or that 3-shot kill range, will extend out to 21.25 meters, whereas our 4-shot kill potential extends out to 75 meters. Beyond that, it's going to be a 5-shot kill. After that, taking a look at our muzzle velocity, this is pretty standard for an LMG. It's right around average at 720 meters per second. That's pretty solid as well. It shouldn't cause too many issues for you unless you're really stretching your ranges out. And now let's have a look at hipfire, which is standard for the LMG category, and that means the hipfire spread is quite wide. It is pretty bad at hipfiring, although relative to the other LMGs, it's not too terrible if you're right up close and personal, and of course it helps if you have attachments that are stacked toward hipfire spread, because at least when it does hit, it hits really hard for that 3-shot kill. Next, let's take a look at our recoil and spread. And with this gun, while the overall magnitude of recoil isn't very high, and it also doesn't appear to have a whole lot of spread, these recoil plots just don't seem to match my experience with this gun. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the slow rate of fire. Maybe I've been having bad connections lately while using the M60. Or maybe it's the fact that it does have that little bit of horizontal recoil thrown in there early on in the recoil plot that many of the other LMGs don't see. In either case, in my experience, I just don't consider the M60 to be particularly accurate for an LMG. But again, that's primarily just based on my feelings while using this gun. Looking at it on paper, it doesn't really look that bad when it comes to recoil. In either case, after that, let's have a look at our handling stats. And these are pretty standard for an LMG. That means it's quite slow. So our aim down sight time by default is 433 milliseconds. That's very slow. Sprint out time also quite slow at 300 milliseconds. However, at least we've got a really solid magazine capacity at 100 rounds by default, although that does come with the slowest reload time in the game at 7.35 seconds. That's a painfully slow reload. So what you could do is use the 50 round mag, which will cut our reload time down to 4.62 seconds, and it also has some handling improvements there as well, so that is a viable option to use on this gun. And for our base multiplayer stats, this just leaves us with mobility, which is standard for LMGs. Not very good in this game, although it does help to pair this with the support class, since that will bring your sprint speed up to the normal value, and then you're just left with a very slow aim walking speed. And with all of that covered, let's have a look at our REDSEC stats. Against 2 armor plates, the M60 is going to be a 6 to 9 shot kill, depending on the range. And this means we get a time to kill potential at 584 milliseconds up close and 934 milliseconds at a distance. And these values are fairly normal for an LMG in this game. It's really not that bad. I could see the M60 being quite usable in REDSEC. Probably not a top tier meta gun, but still pretty decent. And with all of that covered, let's finally move into a couple excellent attachment combinations, and the first one is my balance build. This is my preferred build with the M60. For my optic, I've got the ROM 1.75. I've got the standard suppressor on here to stay off the radar and prevent those live pings from appearing above my head. I'm using the heavy extended mag, which is going to increase our muzzle velocity up to 900 meters per second while also improving my spread values a bit. For my underbarrel, I'm using the stippled stubby here, partially because it helps get that recoil under control a bit, but also because it helps with aim down sight time, and it brings that down to a more reasonable level at 367 milliseconds. That's still fairly slow when you compare it to like assault rifles, carbines, SMGs for instance, but it's at least an improvement over the default aim down sight time. With this one, I also stick with the standard 100 round mag, and I'm topping it off with hollow point ammunition, so I've got that really good headshot potential. So like I said, that's just a nice balanced all-around way to use the M60, and it's my preferred build most of the time. However, I also wanted to share an aggressive build, because you can build this in an interesting way. With this, I'm using the Mini Flex optic, the 50 milliwatt blue laser, and the primary reason for that is to help with our aim down sight spread while moving, and that's also going to be combined with the light barrel, which helps with the same thing. For our muzzle, we've got the long suppressor on there, so we're staying off the radar again, and this is helping with recoil and recoil recovery a bit. We've got the slim hand stop for our underbarrel, And when combining that with the light barrel, that actually brings our aim down sight time down to 250 milliseconds, which is really solid for an LMG. That allows you to be quite aggressive with this. For a magazine, I still like using the 100 round mag, but honestly, you could go with the 50 round mag as well. That'll improve your handling that much more, and you can reload faster, but you've got half the number of rounds in the mag, so it's really up to you on that one, since it does cost the same amount as the 100 round mag. And then finally, we're just topping this off with standard ammo. And with this one, well, it's not quite as accurate as the previous build. It is far better if you want to be aggressive, if you want to be firing while moving as well. This definitely helps with that. And it's just an interesting setup if you're committed to using an LMG in a more close quarters map. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the M60 in Battlefield 6. And when it comes to my thoughts on this gun, generally speaking, I quite like it. Although, as I was saying earlier, I just can't help but think that my shots aren't hitting as I feel they should be. Again, maybe the connections have just been deteriorating recently, but it just often feels like I'm firing directly through enemy players, even when standing still or crouching to really get that spread under control. And that has really been hurting my impression of the M60, but outside of that, when I feel like it's hitting as it should, it hits hard and it feels quite good. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts on the M60, and I'd love to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about this LMG in Battlefield 6 so far? Also with that, I am open to suggestions for any future episodes of gun guides, and if you guys have missed any of the previous ones, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.